I had the opportunity to see CODA, which stands for Child of Deaf Adults, when it premiered at Sundance earlier this year. Apple TV Plus snatched up the distribution rights, and it's now releasing on their platform. So is it binge-worthy? As a child of deaf adults, Ruby is the only hearing person in her deaf family. When the family's fishing business is threatened, Ruby finds herself torn between pursuing her love of music and her fear of abandoning her parents. So this was in the top 3 of my favorites from Sundance. This is also a remake of the 2014 French film The Bélier Family. I haven't seen that one, so I don't know the similarities or the differences. This story is very emotional, and it hits on a few different levels. We get a good introduction to our main character Ruby, who's a teenager that wakes up stupid early each morning to go out and help her family with their fishing business. She then treks to school and has to navigate the pressures and idiocy of high school. Emilia Jones stars as Ruby, and she absolutely sells the performance. She is shy, loving, talented, and frustrated. And because she's the only one in her family that can hear, the entire burden of dealing with the hearing world falls to her. At the beginning of the story, her dad, mom, and brother won't do anything about their frustrations that they are experiencing with the fishing industry. They gripe to Ruby so she hears their irritations, but that's where it ends. She gets to take on the complaints, but they won't take the steps to fix it. In a very short succession of time, we get to see how much her family does rely on Ruby. She has to go to the doctor and translate for her mom and dad for their sensitive health issue. There's some good comedy that comes from this, but we also see how good Jones is at portraying the character who is torn between her own wants and desires and the obligations she feels compelled to fulfill on behalf of her family, and then the frustration that comes as a result. The story does effectively put us into Ruby's world. She becomes a very sympathetic character, and at times my heart just broke for her. You can feel the struggle between Ruby and her family as she tries to create her own path, and the tension that is created there is just really palpable. Her desires have to take a back seat, and she feels taken advantage of and not valued, or at least that her desires aren't valued. Ruby decides to join the choir, and I love the vulnerability that comes from these interactions. In very small lines, we hear how her life has weighed on her, how it's not really even been her life that she's living, but it's her family's. The conversations between Ruby and her teacher are frustrating and heartbreaking too. When a conflict arose, I wanted her so badly to explain what was going on in her life, to hopefully allow him to have some empathy and then understanding. And there is a moment where she's asked how singing makes her feel. Her response is so emotional and powerful. We watch Ruby have almost 3 different lives going on in the movie. And they do intersect at points, but they also add to the complexity of who she is and her situation. She is speaker and interpreter for her family. She's branching out and trying choir, not even knowing if she's good. And then she's also reaching out for a relationship with a boy. Each of these bring new conflict to her life, but each also helps her grow in just wonderful ways. I love seeing the conflict that arises with her older brother, who's played by Daniel Durant. We see his frustrations awesomely conveyed as he is young and capable with the desire to work and to fix things in their fishing business. He rightfully gets so frustrated when the family relies more on Ruby to help and solve problems than looking to him. And then the conversation that he and Ruby have is so emotional and raw. The feelings are very relatable, and they feel so authentic because of how he's built out his performance. Now, when Ruby sings in the choir, the growth that we see in her is just inspiring. She's not a proud person. She comes in very humble and shy, but full of desire. And the scenes that then come from that are amazing. It's powerful to see a character that must be vocal for her family, even if she doesn't want to be, and then see her quiet and timid when it comes to singing. There are 2 scenes with Ruby and her teacher, who's played by Eugenio Derbez, that are especially moving as he challenges her to break out of her shell. And there are a few moments that gave me chills and even brought tears to my eyes as we watch Ruby extend herself to find her voice, both literally and figuratively, which then leads to a climax that's very touching. And the other dynamic that Ruby encounters is with a boy at school. I thought it was a good surprise that the boy is played by Ferdio Walsh-Pilo. He's from Sing Street, which, if you haven't seen it, that is a spectacular movie. The conversations they have are especially important for framing how Ruby sees her family, and I think it works well to deliver both effective drama and some really funny and awkward comedy. And this movie is filled with so many small moments that are absolutely powerful. They could be just a few lines or an entire scene, but each builds out Ruby's family dynamic and then works to place us in her head. There's a powerful moment between Ruby and her mom, who's played by Marlee Matlin, as they talk about if she wished Ruby would have been born deaf. It is a touching and heartfelt conversation, and it's also tough, but it's not going to make you depressed. Now, the soundtrack is wonderful to listen to. Some is obscure rock, while more is mixed with moving and upbeat folk tunes. And these allow for amazing harmonies and also accurately convey the emotion that we're watching on screen. One of the songs is Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, and it's performed a couple of times, mainly in just small portions, but there is one moment where I'm pretty sure the whole song is sung, gave me goosebumps, and then it made me cry. And even though this is mainly a drama, there is a surprising amount of comedy. Ruby's dad, played by Troy Kotsur, he just steals his scenes because he is wildly expressive, and then he has this very matter-of-fact humor. And I laughed out loud multiple times with what he says. Now, the movie is just shy of 2 hours, at 1 hour and 51 minutes, and from the very get-go, I was entranced in the world that is being created for me. To watch Jones play Ruby with such vulnerability and strength, I found uplifting and inspiring. And then the whole cast makes this story work. We have to feel their desperation come through for the conflict to have real meaning in Ruby's life, and I think it does. We see the inner turmoil and struggle to try and make everyone happy, knowing that it's an unattainable goal. I do think the story arc is fairly predictable, but I wasn't concerned with that because I was in love with the characters and their journey. Overall, Coda is an extremely well-acted emotional story with character conflicts that are resonant and relatable. The music, comedy, and most importantly, heart shines bright, creating a world that is sometimes silent and sometimes loud, but always powerful and stirring. So if you can't tell, I absolutely adored this movie. I loved it when I saw it at Sundance, and I loved it even more when I screened it the other day. This is one of those films that I am going to watch over and over, each time knowing that it's going to bring a smile to my face as the happy tears run down my cheeks. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. There is sex, no nudity, a bunch of profanity, and a little bit of violence. I give Coda 5 out of 5 couches. Are there any really impactful movies you've seen recently? Let me know what you watched in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.